Hi, just to conclude there, I haven't slept for weeks because of the election, so I must look really ragged. But with a day's sleep, I'll be fine again, you know. So apologies for looking so ragged, but I'm absolutely exhausted from trying to figure this up. I'm a very early riser anyway, and I haven't slept for weeks, for a couple of weeks now, with all this racing around and all the scamming that's been done to me. The stitch up was horrific, absolutely horrific, and they all knew they were doing it, and like the amount of it that was going on was horrific, and it was. I knew there was, it was like trying to figure out a really complex scam, and it was going on for years and years and years, and they thought I'd never figure it out, I suppose there was just a few good people that were helping me, and I have to pay tribute to senior people in the TUD who did everything to help me. And I won't mention who their names are, but I have to say, there are a few straight people in the TUD, and unfortunately, they weren't so straight in the previous institute, allegedly. So, so that's the story, and there were a few in the TUD. There was a few stray people for me anyway, and it allowed me, I suppose, expose what's been done to me for years. And the surveillance, of course, has to be by An Garda Síochána. Why were they doing it to cover up? It's like the Maurice McCabe story all over again. The whistleblower, except that he had Michael McDougall, and Michael McDougall is a lawyer, and he knows that I wanted to take the Protective Disclosures Act to the Supreme Court or whatever, but I had no solicitor, so I couldn't use Michael McDougall the way he had. So, Michael McDougall let me down big time, but of course he was a lawyer. He wasn't going to show the scamming that went on allegedly. To the scamming of the solicitors, and his wife is an accountant, and she's always talking about accountability. Yes, he wouldn't help me. Mark Martin wouldn't help him because that would be exposing his own profession, allegedly. So that was very disappointing. I was very disappointed. He said, "I'll take it if you can find me a solicitor." What solicitor was going to, speak out against, corruption in law? Nobody. So that's the problem. I actually felt that paper written is actually protected because it has never been proved to the contrary in proceedings, and I don't think there's. I think it has to be taken to court to that's protected. But examining the amount of wrongdoing in that, in terms of omissions, will take years to take months and months. So I don't mind that not being. As far as I'm concerned, it's still protected because it hasn't gone to court. So it's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting the way I was staged and stitched up for years, and it was all jealousy and envy because lawyers think they're better than everybody else, and all this, and I'm so modest, compared to all these mediocrity, mediocre people. And I don't mean that. It's the way they treat you. They treat you, they try and kind of, weaponize your empathy, weaponize your vulnerability against you, and then, make you out to be some kind of a nutcase. And if you get attacked with that kind of gaslighting for years and years, it's really hard to not to get upset very easily, and then they kind of say, oh, she's unstable because we're behind the scenes manipulating her and gaslighting her, but we're pulling all the strings, and then she gets upset easily. Well, who wouldn't? With the amount of abuse and harassment I've suffered all my life, since I started becoming successful, and the Rhinestone Kai, boy, the lights were shining on me, and the jealousy against me was unbelievable. And a head of school once took me aside and he said, "You're going to have to." When I spoke up against Project Maths and the dilution of the standards of mathematics in Ireland, he came and he said to me, "From now on, you're going to have to deal with a horrific amount of professional jealousy for the rest of your life." And I actually didn't understand what he meant by that. It wasn't just professional jealousy. It was also personal jealousy in my life I had had to deal with, and everybody knocking me at every turn because they weren't in my intellectual league, and this is where I've ended up now, all stitched up by An Garda Síochána allegedly, and they know it. They know that I know it, and well, what will I do? Will I complain them to the ombudsman? How many of them would I complain? Is there any point?